Yes. Okay, thank you. So it is 7:01 p.m. and I would like to call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Putnam Board of Education to order tonight at 7:01, Tuesday, November 17th, 2020. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we move on with our next order of business, I just wanted to make a quick announcement. Ms. Casper put it in the chat, but if anyone is interested in sharing a comment, please let her know, put your name in the chat, put your comment in the chat before citizens' comments begin this evening. So please make sure you do that before we begin citizens' comments. Okay, so our next item is the election of a board secretary. So I would like to open nominations for board secretary. Lauren?
I'd like to nominate Carrie Blackmar as board secretary.
Is there a second? Okay. I see Kevin. I think Chrissy beat you by a little. Are there any nominations? There's one nomination on the floor. Is there a motion to close nominations?
I'll make a motion to close nomination.
Okay, so Mike made the motion and Lauren seconded it. So all those in favor of Carrie Blackmar as Secretary of Board of Education, please raise your hand. I see 9 positives. Oh, I see 8. So are there any opposed? Any abstentions? Let's show that I saw 8 there. Carrie, did you raise your hand? No. Okay. So are you abstaining from the vote? Okay. So Carrie Blackmar abstains, but 8 in favor of Carrie. So congratulations, Carrie. Thanks for joining us. Our next item on the agenda is a report from our student representative. So I see joining us now. Welcome.
Hi. I have some reports from the schools. Across all the schools, they all celebrated Veterans Day for the first time this year in school. They all got to learn about the history and got to hear from some veterans over Zoom. So they seemed pretty happy. Starting at the preschool, they've restructured their classrooms so that each room only has 10 students or less. And they held the 5th annual coat drive last week, and they got 188 new coats, as well as $3,500 in donations, which is a really great turnout. The Putnam Holiday Giving Program is now accepting gifts from community for toys. Yeah, and then for the Putnam Elementary School, they have been working on continuing their school-wide pause initiatives this year. The students pitched in ideas for different awards that they wanted. The Putnam Elementary School is also working on virtual field trips. So the 3rd grade is currently working with Audubon Society, where they had kits delivered to the classrooms, and they will be conducting Zoom meetings with all of the classrooms. The Putnam Middle School held a picture day and had students in distance learning were able to come after school and have a picture day for themselves. The student council at the Putnam Middle School held Spirit Weeks in October, and the students were given treat bags on October 29th and 30th. In the Putnam High School, they have concluded their fall round of PSATs and SAT testing, and there was a 83% of students that participated. Next, there's students are meeting twice a month in advisory sessions and reminded of our different platforms such as Richer Picture, Tyler, and Student Square. The seniors were measured for graduation caps and gowns, and Drama Club has finished their auditions and are hoping to have 3 shows in April. The licensing company has allowed them to stream if they aren't able to host an audience. They are allowing them to have a streaming service, so that will be helpful just in case. The marching band has ended their season, and they have a video of their show entered into the US Band's virtual competition. Choral students have been working hard to create a modified virtual ensemble. And lastly, the fall sports have completed their seasons. Boys soccer ended with a 1-9-1 record. Girls soccer ended with a 3-7 record, and the volleyball ended with a 3-5 record. And yeah, that's what's been going on in our schools.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your report. And it's actually pretty impressive to hear that even though things are different this year, that there's really a lot going on. So thank you so much for sharing with us. Does anyone have any questions? We look forward to hearing from you in the future. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Brennan. All right, the next item on our agenda then are the approval of minutes from the October 20th regular meeting. Are there any omissions, corrections, or changes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make the motion.
I heard Lauren, but I think I saw Peggy's hand first. So Peggy, we'll go with the motion. Lauren, second, if that's okay with you. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the October 20th meeting? Okay, I all approval. So that's great. Thank you so much. Next on our agenda is correspondence. I have not received any correspondence. Has anyone else on the board received anything? Okay. So that brings us to one of my favorite parts, the presentations, the Pride of Putnam Awards for Putnam Middle School. So is this Dr. Bruce on?
I'm going to put Dr. Bruce's video on, and also I am going to let the students who I see are present. I'm going to just let them give them the heads up right now that I'm going to turn your video on so that we can see all of you. So if I miss anyone, please let me know. That's going to take a second. Okay. And I think that should be most everyone. So if you have your video turned on as you're recognized, we'll be able to see you.
Perfect. I am going to start with Cecilia Neal. She was the first one to turn video on, so I'll start with Cecilia. Let me just go to my notes here. So Cecilia has been recognized for Pride of Putnam, and she was nominated for this by Ms. Finkelman. And Ms. Finkelman wrote that Cecilia stands out as a responsible, hardworking student. She always has her work up to date and does it to the very best of her ability. She volunteers to help others. She shows maturity in reaching out to classroom teachers to contact them when needed. She is a pleasure to work with in distance learning. She attends distance learning Zoom classes daily, although only required to come every other day. Her teachers frequently comment on what a great student she is and about the good work that she does. And so with that, I want to congratulate Cecilia.
Thank you.
The next student I'm going to recognize is Aiden Riley. And so I have to say, Aiden is new to our district this year. And so I want to not only welcome him to Putnam, but also say that he has just been such a great addition to our Putnam Middle School community. Before I get started with the recognition. And again, Aiden was also recognized by Ms. Finkelman. Aiden is a polite, outgoing student who tries his best at everything he does. He attends all distance learning classes and displays consistent work habits. He volunteers and participates in class and helps others. He is consistently positive and hardworking. Teachers frequently comment on what a good student he is. He stands out among other students in his effort and quality of work. And I know that there were several other teachers who, when I told them that Aiden was being recognized for this tonight, they were really excited about it because he hasn't missed an assignment and has just done a great job with distance learning. So again, congratulations. The next student I'm going to recognize is Esteban Suarez. Esteban attends distance learning classes daily, even though he only has to come every other day. He stays by his computer until 3 or 4 p.m. each day in case any new work is assigned, and he likes to get it completed the same day he receives the assignments. He is a serious student who works the entire time he is in a Zoom class. He asks for help when he needs it. He is very polite and well-mannered. Esteban is a pleasure to work with, and his effort in distance learning stands out among students. Congratulations, Esteban. And I have to say, he did a great job self-advocating. He was messaging me as recently as 2 minutes before we went on because he said, Ms. Bruce, are you in the Zoom? Are you there? I only see the Board of Education. And I said, don't worry, I'll be there, Esteban. But he also made sure that he had the right link and did a great job self-advocating. So the next student I want to recognize is Alyssa Libby. And Alyssa is also being recognized for her efforts with distance learning. Alyssa is consistently trying her hardest and producing her best work in distance learning. She asks questions when she has them and is consistent about doing her work. She is also extremely polite and thoughtful, and she works well with others. She communicates with teachers regularly. And similar to a couple of the other students, Alyssa attends distance learning Zoom classes daily, although she's only required to attend every other day. So again, Alyssa, congratulations and great effort. And the last student I'm recognizing this evening is Christopher Benoit. And Christopher is actually being recognized for something a little different, although he too is doing a great job with his academics. But Chris has been nominated for Pride of Putnam for his kindness, and especially his kindness towards his peers who have special needs. Chris takes the time to read to students in class who do not know how to read, and he is an absolute positive role model for all students in the class. And so Christopher is being commended this evening for demonstrating respect and compassion to his classmates. And so those were the students that we had for recognition for Pride of Putnam from the middle school this month. And I'm just so proud of all of them. And just want to say thank you. Keep up the great work, kids.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bruce. And thank you to all of you, what terrific students we have here. And it was really nice hearing about them. So thank you so much for putting your cameras on as well so we can see you and congratulate you. Very nice work. Before we move on, Superintendent Sullivan also has a Pride of Putnam Award.
Thank you, Jill. Tonight, I would like to recognize Nancy Cole. On October 28th of this year, Nancy celebrated 35 years in Putnam. For those that don't know, Nancy started as a secretary in the central office and has moved up to the business manager position. She puts in insane amounts of time, is meticulous, and is loyal, and it will do everything that she can for Putnam, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to work with her. So We have a 35-year pin. We have a apple for the mantle and a certificate recognizing Nancy's service. So a round of applause for Nancy. You're welcome.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I love my work. Obviously, if we would just have to listen to me whine every once in a while, that's how I deal with my work. So I truly enjoy the work that you do. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Nancy.
Yes, thank you, Nancy, for all that you have done. I'm a little disappointed her camera wasn't on, so I could see her roll her eyes at you, Dan, a little bit of how she probably didn't want to be in the limelight there. I'm just guessing that's went on, but okay. Congratulations, Nancy. We truly appreciate you. Next on our agenda are citizens' comments. Ms. Casper, was there anything in the comments?
No, I haven't seen anything and no one has submitted any comments yet. Again, if you want to give anyone about a minute to see if they want to put anything in the chat, but other than that, there is nothing.
Should we embarrass Nancy for another minute, or is that?
You could do that. It seems appropriate. We can make her turn her video on.
We don't have to do that. We want her to stay. We just be thankful for her.
No. But everything is pretty quiet. I don't see anything popping up at all. And there were no questions submitted previously.
Okay, I think we had talked about staying with that format with asking for questions in advance, but I'd wanted to give people the opportunity this evening if they had wanted to, but seeing that we have no comments at this point, I think we can move on to reports of officers and standing committees. So committee reports, policy committee. Do we have anything new, Marianne?
I have nothing new at this time. In the minutes for the last meeting were in the packet, so nothing new right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Facilities, Jamie? Okay. Curriculum, Carrie? Okay, so the minutes were also, I see, in the packet. Okay.
Yep.
Communications committee. I think Marianne, that's you too, right?
Yes,
So far, no updates.
nothing at this time, no.
So we have CABE events update. Now, I don't have any updates, but I was going to ask, Jeannie was our CABE liaison. So is there a volunteer to be CABE liaison to take over that role who could share updates with us? Mike, you don't mind? That would be great.
I'd like to second Mike volunteering.
Thank you, Chris. I think we can all appreciate that. Excellent. And the batting cage ad hoc committee, Superintendent Sullivan, do we have an update there? Superintendent Sullivan, I can't hear you.
I'd like to ask Mike and Chris and Jamie if they're able to meet next Monday night at 6 with Mark Kader and I to look at the batting cage. Not the cage itself, but the information that we have.
Make it 6:15.
Sure. So next Monday night at 6:15 will be a meeting of the batting cage ad hoc committee.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Financial report, Nancy.
Okay, you have in your packet an updated financial report. Again, we are still working through a variety of journal entries that will have to be made in order for us to balance the bottom line. We did get confirmation on the coronavirus relief funds grant. We are expected to be able to expense about $220,000 for that grant. We are still early in the year and just need a little bit more time before we can flesh out all the entries that will need to be made from the budget into the 2 or 3 grants that we have that support the COVID. We're continuing to update our excess cost report. The figures on that report still represent estimates because we still need to finalize some of those things. What we did find, however, is that our 1-time and 4.5-time figure did increase this year. It went up a little over 8%, I think it was. So that raises the threshold, obviously. So that will have an eventual impact, obviously, on the bottom line. I've included, as we usually do every month, a copy of the Family Resource Center report. And through the first few months of the year, July to October, our revenue is running ahead of our expense. Usually we don't turn that this early, so very pleased to be able to report that at this point in time. And that's it.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions for Nancy? Jamie?
So the grant that we got approved,
Right, I think eventually, yes. Right now, it's too early to tell until I, finish really running all the journal entries. We still have, again, staff encumbrances that we have to deal with that have to be checked. So, I'm not projecting a deficit at this point in time. So, we just have a lot of entries that we're going to need to make. And I think until those entries are made, we're not going to be able to really see the final projected balance. And the coronavirus relief funds, we have until the end of December to actually expense that money. So we had to project what we thought we were going to spend. And now we have to literally go through the end of December and then go back and hopefully, expend that money like we said we were. So that is, that one is still up in the air because we need to get through December to see what that figure is going to be, but we do anticipate it to be about 220,000.
is there any other grants for after?
Not that I am aware of. The ESSER grant, the 255,000 we have until next September to spend. We do anticipate probably utilizing all of those funds before the end of this school year. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought Monica was doing the unmuting. Sorry. Sorry. Do we have a number as to what COVID has cost the district and a projected number what it's going to cost us for the year?
Yes. I've been tracking those expenses since we started last March. And
Well, I'm kind of talking this fiscal year, which was what, July on?
right. And again, it's a moving target, but I
Obviously,
can give you an estimate.
that would be great.
Just pulling it up here. Go to my summary page. 2021. Approximately $700,000.
Okay, because the reason why I'm asking is because the last time everybody thought there was, it was costing us virtually nothing with all the money that we were saving in all of our other areas. I just want people to understand how expensive this COVID truly is to the district. I know what it costs me where I work and for doing all the extra steps I've had to have done. I just want the public to understand this is not, one-to-one offset on the things we're not doing. You know, it has a huge expense and a huge impact on the budget, so.
Right, so we have offsets. I mean, again, we have, I continue to update those figures. You know, we're over $700,000 and we have over, it's about 738,000 and we have about 541,000 to offset that. So the
The 541 comes from where?
it comes from grants.
Okay,
So,
but there's nothing out of the school budget, the normal school budget that we are saving money on that's offsetting the 700,000.
correct. I mean, we have to cover the difference, which is, you know,
Right.
just under 200,000 with budget funds, correct?
Because going into next year, budget season, which will start after the first of the year, that is something we need to keep focus on when we're trying to calculate the
Correct.
budget process.
Yes,
So,
good point.
you know, because it's not going to be budget season as usual, I guess. You know, maybe when we do the budget, we do our regular budget and we have our COVID line item. You know, I'm just throwing it out as suggestions, you know, that should COVID end and, you know, the expense goes way down because of the vaccines coming and everything else, you know, just something we need to think about.
Well, and I think one of the things that we have to be thoughtful about in that, to your point, is I know there's a lot of excitement this week about pending vaccines, but the ability to get the vaccine to our community, to be able to vaccinate everyone in order to come back to school, there may be expense in that, because while the vaccine may be free, we may have to be paying staff to administer vaccinations. We may find that the vaccine is not safe for children. There can be a lot of variables. I anticipate that we're going to go into the start of school next year with some variation of what we're doing right now. I think you need to mute.
Mike?
I agree. I just think that, you know, why I brought up the 700,000, I know we're gonna have expenses going into next year. And it's something that we need to pay attention to when we do our budget season.
Thank you, Jamie. Mike, did you have another question?
Yeah, Nancy, could you explain object code 519, the $89,000 deficit and the unaudited balance?
We are currently running a extra tier for the busing, and part of those costs will be covered through the Coronavirus Relief Fund grant.
So,
We're running an extra tier at the elementary school.
so that 89 would be part of that 700 plus?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Nancy? Okay, Superintendent Sullivan's report. Superintendent Sullivan?
Thank you again. So my first item is the holiday giving campaign. Once again, Patty Bryant has agreed to coordinate the holiday giving campaign. One, I'm very grateful for the time and effort that Patty, Jess, and her staff put into getting that off the ground to help members of our community. Given the fiscal impact of the pandemic, we anticipate greater community need this year, but at the same time, this may be a year that some people who traditionally support the program are not in a position to support it the way they have in the past. So anybody out there that's feeling generous and wants to help others in a time of great need, please reach out. We'll take all the support we can get for the children of the Putnam Public Schools. Second item, Teacher of the Year. The Teacher of the Year ceremony is typically held in November at the Bushnell. The Department of Education still hopes to hold an in-person ceremony this year, so they are tentatively rescheduling that ceremony in Hartford until the spring. COVID-19 update. So stating information that most people already know, cases are up nationally, statewide, and in Northeast Connecticut. 2 weeks ago, Putnam was designated a red zone. Last week, we were designated a yellow zone. As a result of our categorization, I was invited to participate in a conference call with the Department of Education and Tom St. Louis from the Connecticut Department of Health last Thursday. And the call focused on the increase of COVID cases in certain communities. They talked to us about contact tracing at the state level and indicated their findings are that transmission appears to be occurring at private social gatherings, from people going to inside dining, and through social aspects, including youth sports. Based upon that information, they are encouraging local school districts to respect Department of Health guidelines and to not close schools because of a case, and to not keep entire classes home if students are not identified as close contacts. They do recognize that there may come a time where schools close because they're having trouble with staffing levels because of the number of people that are identified as close contacts. But if schools are able to support in-person learning, the State Department of Education and the State Department of Public Health are encouraging us to stay open. With that said, I also participated in a call yesterday afternoon with area superintendents, school nurses, and the Northeast District Department of Health. Sue Starkey, who has been supporting all of us since last March, facilitated the meeting, talked to us about what is going on in the area, and she and other members of the health community did express their concern about the situation in Northeast Connecticut, the limited number of ICU beds at Day Kimball, the activities in the community where there's been not only an increase in cases, but an increase in contacts, and a concern that those contacts in some cases are later proving to be cases. So I know people are asking what determines whether schools should stay open or closed. The state provided metrics at the beginning of the year that identified whether schools should open in full, whether schools should go to a hybrid model, or whether schools should go to a full virtual learning model. And at this point in time, even being designated a red zone would not necessarily identify us as needing to close. But even on top of the community metrics that the state originally put out, they're really now encouraging us to look at in-school data, recognizing that community data doesn't tell the whole story. And currently, the in-school transmission rate is around, is at or below 1%. For example, counting a new case today that I have not been able to notify the board or the community about just yet, because we had a board meeting tonight. We have had 6 staff members test positive for COVID-19, and we have had 5 students test positive for COVID-19, bringing us to 11 cases. Now, we have had other people that have been required to quarantine at home because family members have contracted the virus, or they've been identified as close contacts because of activities outside of school. But that does diminish the number of people at school, either because they are staff or students because they're identified as a contact. If you test positive for COVID-19, you're required to stay out of school for 10 days. And at the end of the 10 days, you still can't return unless you've been symptom-free for 24 hours. If you are a contact, you're required to stay out for 14 days from the date that you interacted with the person who tested positive for COVID-19. If it's a family member and you're not able to isolate in the home, then it's actually 14 days added on to the 10, which could keep you out of school for 24 days. So when you take all of that, it's fair to say that there is a high level of stress. I see the stress in my staff. In some cases, I see it with students and parents who have contacted me. But then there are also the parents and the students who say, please don't close school. I can't promise anybody today that we won't close school at some point this year. We really need to do what we believe is right and best for our students and our community. And that is going to be driven by health metrics and our ability to facilitate a safe and healthy learning environment. And I think it's going to be important for us to look at both physical safety and emotional safety when we make that decision, because if we reach a point where people are just crippled with fear, I don't know that that's the best way to run school. But the nature of my position as the superintendent of schools, I answer to a lot of masters. I answer to you, the Board of Education, but I also have to answer to the State Department of Education that has been really driving home a strong message about keeping schools open. I have another meeting this Friday with the State Department of Education and the Department of Public Health about this very topic. I speak about it tonight because I know it's the question on everybody's mind. And there are people who can't wait for us to close, and there are people who hope that we never close. Some of the questions that I've also had are about why we don't close for deep cleaning. I will tell you that our custodians have been working incredibly hard through this process. They had COVID training last week. They are doing everything that they need to do to clean our schools every day, so that our students are coming in on a hybrid where, blue group today, white group tomorrow situation. Every day our school is clean. They do have additional protocols that they will follow if it's a situation where there's somebody who was to be here today, test positive today, then there is an additional level of cleaning they do. But frequently we have people who are out sick and test, and by the time they get their results, it's been 3 days or 5 days and they just haven't been here. At the same time that people are asking about closing, I have had people ask about high school sports. The CIAC announced today that winter high school sports are now scheduled to start in mid-January. We should have 2 more board meetings before that ever happens, so there'll be plenty of time to talk about high school sports if you desire. In the midst of all things COVID, though, I also want to say that we haven't forgotten about the things that we can do, the activities and traditions that our student rep talked about. If you leave here tonight and you look down the hallway, the high school is doing some hallway decorating. We had activities in our schools, at Halloween, and I imagine that if we're able to keep school open, we'll celebrate the winter holidays that are coming up, because all of those things are part of the academic experience and good for our students' social, emotional health. And we also haven't forgotten about academic achievement. I have met with our principals and some of our teachers in the last week, and spoken at great length about making sure that academic achievement is not lost because of COVID. We left here in a rush last March, and it's fair to say that there was some learning gaps that were associated with closing in March and not returning to school until this fall. And now on the hybrid model, we have a chance to emphasize quality over quantity. But I really want to make sure that we're looking at what we teach and how we teach it, and even how we group our students to make sure that we're maximizing the time that we have with them so they don't fall further behind and ideally get caught up. To that end, Mike, you asked a question a few minutes ago about the bus tier. I anticipate a number of changes between this meeting and January 4th. In talking with the principals at the elementary school and the middle school, we're going to be reevaluating some cohorts and some schedules to try to better meet student needs. We also have looked at bus ridership, and while I think adding the tier of busing and a different wave of start times at the start of school was a good decision, because we really didn't have any certainty as to what bus ridership would be based upon students that rode the bus in the past. We are finding that parents are electing to bring their kids to school and bus ridership is low. So we can return to one consistent start time for elementary students and one consistent start time for middle school students, and reduce the tier of busing, which will really help with the daily organization at the schools, particularly at the middle school. And at the same time, we'll have a budget savings come January. And it's also most important to note, based upon current ridership, that change will still mean that we do not have more than one student per seat on the bus. So before I move on to the other items, I'll pause because I imagine there may be questions or comments of the board relative to COVID-19.
Mike,
Superintendent Sullivan, I'm curious whether you can clarify from yesterday's NDH meeting and Sue Starkey's follow-up email today about the decision-making to either stay in or go out as a region. How would that process actually work? Sorry.
No, that's a really good question. Sue made a point of following up with us in an email today, saying that if we felt that it was important to make a decision as a region, that she would recommend closing, but that her overall recommendation is that schools look at the impact of the virus on their individual district in making their decision. But she is encouraging us to look at metrics beyond the ones that the state is asking us to look at. So the state has really asked us to focus on, county data, how many cases per, and go from there. And Sue is saying that, we have to look at the impact on staffing, and not just even on physical presence of staffing, but what is the emotional toll, or just, number of hours involved in contact tracing and, and cleaning, etc., to keep the schools open. And suggesting that if it becomes too burdensome, we should close. And, and relative to making a decision locally versus the region, I've met with area superintendents today, and we plan to meet again later this week. I, for one, being transparent, believe that if there's going to be a lengthy closure, that it's something we really should be deciding as a region. I don't see the benefit of one district in this area having a lengthy closure while everybody else is in school. I don't see how that helps with community spread. And I also, you know, I think it creates an unhealthy dynamic where does it send the message that, you know, one district's priorities are out of whack one way or the other in terms of like, oh, you don't care because you're staying open, or, you know, or you got tired of this so you closed when everybody else is staying open. I think, you know, we have discussions like that about snow days, and I think we should be having discussions about this in the same way. Any other questions or comments of the board relative to COVID-19 and our response? So as our student rep also referenced, this is the first year that Putnam students were in attendance on Veterans Day. As the board knows, the American Legion supported this decision last year. And in fact, while our original plan was for us to have members of the Legion here on site at our schools for flag raising ceremony and to visit with students and staff, the pandemic threw a curveball at us, but I'm so grateful for the Legion they created 8 videos for us to share with students across our schools. In addition, each of the schools created lessons and thank you notes were written, and the elementary school even created a thank you video for our veterans. So I'm very proud of that, and I still think it was a meaningful day of school for our students. Personnel report. We have a resignation of a special education teacher, and we have 2 paraprofessionals and a per diem substitute as new hires in the district. And monthly reports are in the packet. That concludes my report. Yes, Mike.
I just have a question. I don't know if Jackie or Suzanne or you want to take this, but on the high school report, the participation rate for the SATs was 83%. Is in the participation rate of in-person was also 83%. So is that are those 2 things correlated, or is that just by accident that they were both the same number?
Jackie should be able to talk at this point. And she'll be able to show her video.
Mike, can you hear me?
I can, Jackie.
Sorry, I think I missed some of your question. I heard something about participation rate and the 83%.
So I just saw that the participation rate was 83%, and then also the in-person percentage was 83%. Are those correlated? Are the kids that are home not take the SATs?
I think that's just a coincidence. So the 83% was in totality. We had about 86%. So that includes our distance learners, our full remote learners, our hybrid students. So the 83% was grades 9 through 12, with our lowest participation rate around 82%. I believe that was our freshmen. And our highest participation rate were the seniors on SAT at about 86%. So that was the average. So that includes all our entire student body, 83% participated.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Superintendent Sullivan? I just wanted to add that as a parent of an elementary school student, I really enjoyed the Veterans Day video. I was looking forward to what we could do in person, but it was really a meaningful way to spend the day. And my son had a great time learning in class, but also reflecting on service and what people have done. So thank you for doing that. And thank you to the American Legion, and thank you to the teachers for putting that together. We have business next on the agenda, and the first thing is the approval of the General Improvement Alliance grant for 2020-2021, which was in our board packet this week. Do we have a motion to approve that, the General Improvement Alliance grant? Jamie?
I hate this thing. I got a couple of questions on them. That's okay.
Absolutely.
There was one for the middle school for oil burners, upgrading them. I thought when we put the new heating system here, the burners had already been updated and we moved those new $45,000 or $40,000 burners down to the middle school. Ants, you would remember that more than Dan when he wasn't here. He was.
All right, Mark, I know there's a question for you. You should be able to turn on your video and unmute yourself now.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
All right. Jamie, those burners that you're talking about, we put down in the elementary school. Okay. They're oversized. Yeah, there's only one boiler for the middle school. There's 2 boilers for the elementary school.
Okay.
And we put those burners down there at the elementary school. They're oversized for boilers that we have.
Now,
They have,
was on the elementary side, wasn't there a request for burners,
Yep.
upgrading the
Yep.
burners as well?
absolutely.
So-
The other ones are about 15 years old already, believe it or not. They're oversized for the boilers that we have. And they have a hard time keeping those tuned. They really do.
Okay. Because I just remember I remember moving them down there because at the time, they weren't that old. They were only, I thought only a couple years old at that point.
No, I think they were older than, I think they're probably between, if we looked, I would say total time, they're probably between 12 and 15 years old already.
Jesus, doesn't seem like it could be that long.
Yeah.
No age jokes. All right. I just saw that and it just kind of jumped out at me because I remember doing.
And the burner in the middle school is from 1992.
Yeah.
So, and then the same thing with the 2 domestic hot water heaters. Both of those boilers are from 1992.
How much was the total grant for all 3 schools that we're requesting? How much is the total for all 3 schools?
We got $477,000 to
Okay.
request for different items. And one of the things that they were talking about that we mostly should be doing is upgrading like exhaust fans and air handlers, boilers, that kind of stuff, because that's what the money is for. They don't, we put in for a few other things, they kicked them back.
How about the
So,
faucets? I mean, with COVID, I can see how that's a huge,
how about the what? I'm sorry?
the touchless faucets now. 'Cause
Yep.
That's, I see with COVID, that's huge, but I didn't realize we had that many faucets.
Well, between the 2 schools, yeah, absolutely.
Surprising when you see the number, you don't realize it going through because nobody counts it, but when you see it. So $477,000, that grant, we're applying for the grant.
No, I think because we're an alliance district, we're guaranteed that $477,600 is what, and for all the things that we applied for, I think it was like $476,000 is what, as close as I could come to 477,600. So it's about $1,600 that we didn't allocate something for. But my understanding is once they approve what we sent in, they kick back, like I say, they kick back certain items to us. We reapplied for other items and we haven't gotten anything kicked back to us. My understanding is, and I don't know if superintendent wants to speak on this too, is that that money is going to be basically guaranteed to us because we are an Alliance district, that we're going to get this money to do this work.
Okay. That was my question. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and just to, thank you, Mark. And just
Yes,
to
sir.
follow up on Jamie's question, Mark is completely right. We're getting this money. It was allocated to us because of our district status, but they're also very strict about what they will and will not allow us to spend money on. So, Mark and Nancy spent a great deal of time working on this and saying, okay, what is in the best interest of the district that the state will also allow us to do with this money? So I think they made good decisions in the end.
Thank you. Any further questions? Do I have any motions about the General Improvement Alliance grant budget? Jamie?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Have a second? Kevin? I saw Kevin first. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, I see everyone in favor. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is the budget dates. So getting those set. Nancy, Dan?
So Jill, I'm gonna make a suggestion here. Based upon what we did last year, we had the first meeting that we held in January was our budget workshop. And then the following week was our regular budget meeting. So I'm gonna propose that the board consider, and then if they agree, make a motion to approve that the January 19th board meeting be rescheduled for January 26th, and on January 19th, we hold the budget workshop. I think to try to turn the budget around with the holidays by January 12th becomes unnecessarily burdensome for a great deal of staff. So that would be my suggestion.
Any questions or comments on Superintendent Sullivan's suggestion?
Why don't we leave the board meeting where it is and just move the budget meeting to the 26th?
Sorry, why don't we leave the board meeting where it is and move the budget meeting to the 26th to give you plenty of time to work on that? I just think this budget season is gonna be a little more complicated in COVID. So I just think having that extra time would work out a little bit better.
That's fine.
So I would make a motion, make the budget meeting January 26th.
And keep the regular meeting on the 19th. Do I have a second for Jamie's motion? Okay, Mary Ann, any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, I see all in favor. Thank you. So we will have the regular meeting still on January 19th and the budget workshop on January 26th. Excellent, thank you. Next item is the adoption of the textbook Math Basics for Healthcare Professionals from Pearson. Carrie, do you want to talk about this at all? We weren't for adoption last month, sorry. I can't hear you, Carrie, I'm sorry.
Hold on, okay. Yes, so we were, at the last meeting, we discussed warning for adoption for the book so that I believe they want to have a January start to that course.
Excellent. Does anyone have any questions for Carrie or about the textbook? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the book.
Okay, Kevin and Lauren second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? I'm sorry, Zoom is giving me a slight lag. I apologize. I just want to make sure I have this right. Could we, Mike, were you raising your hand in the opposed or the favor? In favor?
In favor.
Okay, thank you. So one more time, all those in favor, please raise your hand, just so I can see that. Okay, so I see everyone's hand on this one. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Sorry about that, the fun with technology part. Excellent. So the last item is a personnel matter that we had talked about going into executive session and inviting Superintendent Sullivan and Nancy Cole to join us. So do we have a motion to move towards executive session? Lauren, and a second? Kevin, so all those in favor of, we would take a brief 5-minute recess and then moving to executive session with Superintendent Sullivan and Nancy Cole joining us, please raise your hand. Signify. Okay, excellent. So I see all those, everyone is in favor. So we will move to executive session in 5 minutes. Thank you very much, everyone.